All right, guys, this is going to be a tutorial or a review or an information. Signal crossing switching units and signal crossers. Uh, a real common one you see online, and I'm going to insert pictures as I go along that are the instructions that came with it, only you have to get them from the site. But this is a real common unit. It's on eBay, and you do Google search, and this thing comes up a million times. Now, this one came with a little clear plastic mounting, which was nice. And the instructions on this thing are a little confusing. And you guys can leave a comment and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never seen a signal crossing with yellow lights. But the programming on this thing, you have two blocks down here. One of them is your timer delay. The other one is also a timer delay for the yellow light. And there's a jumper over here that turns on the yellow light or turns off the yellow light, just takes it out of the sequence. But on the instructions, this timer delay, it'll go 3, 5, 7, or 10 seconds. And that's all it tells you. I think it's the same times on this one for the yellow light. And the way that above that little description, which you'll see it on an insert, it describes that as, it's really confusing, but it refers to it as a green light, yellow light, red light, like a traffic signal. Why would you have a flashing unit on a traffic signal? And why would you have a yellow light on a train crossing? I don't know. So if you see this thing, like I said, this is common. A bunch of these on eBay, everywhere else, and I paid like 35 bucks for it, and it came with the crossing signals. Problem: I ordered N-Scale, and they sent HO scale lights. These are 3-wire lights, so you have to have a 3-wire light system to do the flashing. In all my antique collection, I had a set of the N-Scale Bachmann train crossing signals. However, they're 2-wire, and there's a switch. And basically how they work, you hook them up to the power, and you can see the little switch in here. Yellow wire and green wire go into each light. The brown ground wire goes from the switch. The yellow wire, and the green wire are hooked up in the lights. The yellow wire is also hooked to the switch. The green wires are tied together and open. So you connect the green wire and the brown wire, you turn the switch on, all the lights just come on. They're kind of like in a parallel wiring system. Nowhere on here does it say anything, voltage, types of lights, or anything. But being that it's an old kit, this is you can see here, it's a power model. So that means they're not LED. So I'm going to show you how I make this into a 3-wire light. Get rid of this switch. Problem: this unit comes with the cable to connect it from the circuit board to the infrared pickups. Now, there was another video out, and I watched it, said the same problem I had. Train crosses it, doesn't trip it. You're going to have to glue a piece of foil Just take aluminum foil and glue it somewhere on the bottom of your engine. Don't worry about putting it on the rest of the cars because it doesn't matter. When these things are tripped, there's a 3-second delay before the lights start flashing. Now you can do the math and figure it up. I was going to do it, but it really didn't matter. But running my train at a moderately slow speed, especially a passenger train, it's not going to be crawling like a freight train. This is the wire you get. Maybe 2 feet, or just a little under 2 feet. All the way stretched out. And of course, since it didn't say anything, I've already mounted one of these on my board, and I'm about 6 inches, because I have a tunnel there, I'm 6 inches from the crossing. Well, the lights don't start flashing until the train's halfway through the intersection. I don't know. I'm kind of measured when it was running how far the engine got before the lights came on, and it's about that far, and that's running at a slow speed. So as far as this thing will reach, when it trips the signal, your train is, when it starts flashing, your engine's going to be right at the crossing gate. Nowhere in here does it say there's a 3-second delay from this thing to the lights coming on. So that's something I'm going to have to try to correct on that other one. Of course, you know, I glued them in so good and tight, and now I'm going to have to try to chisel them out. But this is going on another crossing, so I'll show you the stages how I do it. So anyway, that's the problem with this thing. Now also, and I have it set on the 10-second. And even though the train is still crossing the infrareds, when 10-second comes, those lights shut off. So if you're running a really long train, the flashing lights are going to shut off before your train's cleared the crossing. I thought, my thinking is, infrared, it's going to be tripped as long as there's a train over it. And that's not the case. It's a single signal that the infrared sends to the circuit board to start the program. So once that engine crosses it and sets it in motion, you have 10 seconds. That's the longest you can set it. And like I said, if you're running a long train, it won't clear the track. Now I'm running like a Santa Fe, the Super Chief passenger set. I just have 4 cars on it, and I think it will clear. But if I was running 8 cars, those long passenger train, the last car, the signal would probably shut off before the last car went by. And if you're running a long freight train, it's going to shut off before your freight's past the intersection. So keep that in mind when you see this on eBay. They're around $35 still. It's a single trip, and it's only going to flash for a maximum of 10 seconds. And there's a 3-second delay before it goes off. So there's an issue. And when you order it, I ordered in scale. The package said in scale. It had HO lights in it. So I'm going to make whatever I did with them. Oh, I'm going to make those Bachmann lights. I did it on that set, and I had to kind of really destroy one to figure out the wiring, because I didn't know if it was in series, parallel, or what. But it ends up, they just tied the right and left light, and then hooked the green and yellow to it. So you only have to cut one place to add a wire and let the other one stay spliced as the neutral or positive, because like I said, it's not LED, so it doesn't matter which way you hook it up. Okay, I'm going to show you the inserts of instructions that come with this thing so you can recognize it before you order one. And then I'll show you how I modified these antique. And these things are, I found some on eBay, and they're like $25. And I thought, you can order a 3-wire set out of China for $5 each. So you kind of got to watch. I think I paid, this was back in the, I don't know, in the 1800s or something when Columbus come over or whenever it was. 11 $11.58 at Hobby Lobby. That's how old this is. But they work. Okay, what I did, and I don't know if I can get to see this or if it'll focus. Get it to really focus in there. There you can kind of see where the wires come up on the back, and I bent them up. And what I did is I took like a cotton swab and got some lacquer thinner, and just dipped it in there and just kind of rubbed that, and you can see all the black paint that come off. And it does have a little bit of insulation on it. And then this little wire that I pulled up right here is what the green one's hooked to it. All you have to do is cut that one side, if I can do it while I'm holding it to you. Okay, so now I've cut and separated it's just so hard to see because it's so small. But the big blob is where the two wires and the green wire all soldered together. And I just cut one lead off. I'm gonna leave the yellow one alone, and it's hooked to both lights. That can be your common ground or your common hot lead, either one. And then I'm gonna take and solder a little piece of wire to here, drill a little hole and go down underneath. And here's, you can see there's a switch, and the brown wire would hook to a power lead, and then the green wires are tied and soldered together, and they'll hook to a lead. So we're going to separate these, and we're going to eliminate the brown wire, and the yellow wires don't need to be separated or connected to the switch. So we're going to cut that off. So now I have two separate lights, and I'll have to do the same on this light also. You can see before I've cleaned it. See, it's all bumped up there real tight. And it had a little insulation on part of the wire, but the rest of that is just black paint. They just gobbed it on there to cover it up and smooth it out. So a little lacquer thinner and a cotton swab, and it cleaned it right off. Oh, and the wire I use, I have some 28 gauge and 26 gauge that's insulated, but I have just a plain spool, which this is what I make my trees out of a lot of 28 gauge copper, no insulation. However, it is insulated. It's coated with like a lacquer or something, because I don't know how many times I got frustrated when I'd hook something up and I'd hip a clip to it and I'd have no power. Well, there's an insulation. You have to take a little file or sandpaper or something and strip that clean. So you don't have to worry about shorting out or anything. I just clean off the end so I can solder it and run it down the back side of the light. But if it was the ones I got that are insulated, it's 3 times bigger than this. And since this won't short out anyway, I can run it right down the pole, paint it black, and you don't even notice it's there. All right, you won't be able to see this either, but I take this little drill bit and I fit it right at the base on the back side of the pole and drill a little bit of a hole through there, so that when I do solder this wire, I can bend and fold it to run down the back of the pole and bend it and then go through that hole, and that'll give me my third wire. So with this cut, just so everybody understands, this side is still soldered to the green. So that comes down here. This one is going to need a power lead. That's the one I'll add down the back, and then my yellow will be common. Kind of have to wrestle with this little wire. Have you ever tried rolling wire over to get it a certain way? It's like, nope, I want to lay this way. I just take my file and run across this end, and I just hit the spot that I'm wanting to solder. And I know you can't see it. Gosh, you can't even see it in the camera. But you just, yeah, about a 1/4 inch of the end. Then you use Mr. Third Hand here. Line it up best you can and try to solder it. Now, I will tell you, when you're cleaning the end of that wire off, hold it with a pair of tweezers, because I did ruin one of those by trying to cut that little bit of insulation off, and it just pulled the wire right out of the light bulb. So you have to be careful with that. Just hang on to that wire with tweezers or pliers, and then slice it, strip away the insulation so you can get to it to solder it. All right. I think we got a good solder joint. You can see maybe it's soldered on there sticking out. Now I'm going to take the end of this wire and try to gently bend that back over the back side. And then pull the slack out of that wire. Maybe. And I had thought about trying to make these more prototypical and painting the poles silver, weathering them. You can kind of see I've got it laid in there. It's down the back side of that post. And so I figured when I paint all this black, just stay with that color, you're not going to see it. And there you have it. Coming down that back side. And I'll get this wire bent up just a little bit higher, and you can use just a spot of super glue, but you almost don't need it. But just a spot top and bottom to hold it from wiggling. And then I'll get all this painted black and covered up, and then that light's a 3-wire light and ready to go. Now I'll get the other light finished, and then I'll plug all this in and test that circuit board before I've learned to do that before you mount them, because you never know when it's not working. But I'll get all this finished up, hooked up, and then I'll show you how the test and the lights work. All right, well, we got the lights working. Always bench test your electronics. Even the little light bulbs I use, I bench test everything. Too many times in the past, I'd put it all together and then something didn't work. So, just a word of advice. Now, this board does have a jumper for the light voltage of either 12 volt or 3 volt. So, you can run the LED lights, you can run incandescent lights. It's set up for everything. It's pretty handy. All right, well, here's the signal for the first one I put in. And you can see the infrareds are close to the tunnel. And this is the one I had to pull the circuit board off of it, put the other circuit board on. And then I come up here to the top for those signals, but I've got the infrareds as far as they would reach. And same on the other side. Okay, there you have it. We got the lights mounted, swapped the circuit boards. The one that was giving me the delay, we moved it up on top. It still had a delay. But then there's an adjustment for the flasher speed of the lights. And when we started speeding it up on that board, it closed that delay. I don't know how that's connected. So we played with it and we run it as fast as it would go, and the delay was gone. But the lights looked like they were on a police car. So we backed it off, and I've got about a 1.5 second delay on that board. We tried the same thing on this board. We started speeding up the flashers a little bit. Has no effect. Slowed it all the way down even slower and had no effect. There's just no delay on this board. I bought them at the same time from the same place, so go figure. Also, there's a dimmer button. Has 4 clicks. You can go through the cycle. And with an LED bulb hooked up to it, it was working okay. Again, on one board, the dimmer works on incandescent lights. The other board doesn't affect the lights. So they're identical, the settings are the same, but there's just a quirk in them. Overall, they're still a good value. I mean, I paid $35 a few years ago, and I just looked them up and I found them for $44. So it's a good buy to get both the components. And you can even find them with the soundboard that goes with it that does a little bell crossing. And I may try to order that later, and it just plugs in one spot, and then you have sound with them. So overall, they're worth the money. They just got some quirks in them that you guys have to work around if you ever use those things. Hopefully, if you've used them, yours worked out with less headache than mine did. So, but we're glad to get them done. And we're going to wrap this video up here. I'm going to put in a couple clips to show you the lights working at night. And then I got a bunch of cleanup to do. We had a tropical storm hit yesterday, and it's real wet out here, and I got some unhappy goats. So until next time, appreciate you guys watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll eventually get some more stuff out for you.